Quiet on the set.
Camera speed.
Sound production.
Roll sound.
Rolling.
Sound production. Take 2.
Welcome to the I Remember Liking That Movie podcast. Remember those childhood movies you loved? Now, we're going to watch them again and find out if they're still as amazing as you remember. Or, your father was right. You were an idiot, and everything you watched was stupid. So buckle up, movie aficionados. Over-the-top gore? Check. Over-embellished action? Check. Gratuitous nudity? Double check. Storylines so absurd you could drive a semi-truck through those plot holes. Oh yeah, some of those movies didn't even know what a movie plot was. And that's the way we liked it. Now, here's your hosts, Anna Santos and Jimmy Coates.
All right, welcome to the I Remember Liking That Movie podcast. Today we are going back to we weren't born.
Correct.
1974 to watch the original, well, the first Death Wish of many, and the original modern revenge. Like there was Dirty Harry, but he was a cop. This is the everyday guy, doesn't get justice, takes it into his own hands.
Yeah, this is like hardcore vigilante-ness.
Yeah. And many followed. many. They're still doing them.
Oh, God, yeah. I love a good vigilante movie. I even love a bad vigilante movie.
Yeah, I've seen lots of those.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, what do you remember about 1974's Death Wish starring Charles Bronson?
I'll be honest, I don't remember specifics. I remember there's a lot of shooting, a lot of serious looks. There's a lot of intensity, but I don't remember specifically that much of the action,
Right.
which is not weird, but now I'm concerned because usually when I forget a lot of what happened, I don't end up liking the movie, which concerns me. So I remember liking this because, as I said, I do love a good vigilante movie and I love a bad vigilante movie. So I'm like, I know I would have loved this. I just can't remember any details about it.
I love Charles Bronson. I don't love every movie he's done, but I did really like Charles Bronson. My introduction to Death Wish wasn't this one. It wasn't even the second one. My introduction to Death Wish was Death Wish 3, where he goes to visit his buddy in New York from the war, and it's overrun by gangs. In the late 70s, early 80s, there were so many gang movies. Like I think The Warriors was one of the big, one that kicked that off, and we had Warriors of the Bronx, but gangs, class of 1984, stuff like that. So that was my introduction. When I watched this probably that I remember at least 2 times. The first time I didn't like it because it was around that same time. I'm like, this is boring. At least in the third one, it was ridiculous the amount of people he was killing.
Well, of course.
But then I watched it again and I appreciated it a lot more. I don't remember a lot. It would have been something like the early mid 90s for me for Death Wish.
Honestly, same.
Yeah.
It was probably early 90s. I never rewatched it.
Yeah,
It also worries me. But I mean, that could be for any reason. But yeah, no, it's been that long. It's probably been about 30 years since I've seen it.
When you were a kid and a teen, like a kid in the 80s and a teen in the 90s, I don't know if everyone thinks like this, but 70s and 60s was old. I mean, it is old, but I mean, it was old and it was stupid. Not like there were some good ones, but I didn't go looking for things in there. Not until I got a little older.
Well,
Probably mid to late 90s is when I really started getting into 70s movies.
yeah, when I was in my early teens, if I watched a movie from 1980 or before, it was because I happened upon it by accident. While I'm flipping through the channels, and then I stop and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll watch this. It wasn't something I sought out. That was probably in my late teens. where I started kind of being like, oh, like this. Well, actually, probably my mid-teens, because I remember by the time I was in grade 12, we had a class in my school called film and literature. So it's about the links between obviously film and literature. One of my favorite English classes, shout out to Mr. Cody. That was when just before I took that class, I had started watching a lot of older movies and just consuming them just to see what the movies were like before 1980 basically, because like obviously I watched a lot of 80s movies cuz I was coming up in that. Like I was a kid and I was watching what my brother and my sister were watching
Yeah.
and my cousins were watching. So, they were all watching current movies. Nobody was watching the older ones. Although I did watch Wizard of Oz with my mom.
Yeah, there were some that
Yeah.
were like Jaws, Star Wars, Wizard of Oz,
Mm,
movies like that that were any Disney movies. Those were there were exceptions, and but when I really got into 70s movies, like I really started to appreciate them. But I
yeah.
don't remember a ton about this. I know that his family is wronged. I don't know. I think one or two are murdered, and
Yeah.
police aren't doing anything. And he's like, "Oh, hey, I'll do it myself." Did you watch the remake? Well, first, did you watch any of the other Death Wishes with Charles Bronson?
No, I
They
didn't.
made 5 of them.
That's a lot of death wishes, my friend. Um, Usually if I see a lot of sequels, it makes me very uncomfortable because I know how look, we all know what happened with the Fast and the Furious, right? Like
Oh,
they're at
yeah.
number 10.
I just watched number 10.
I love them all. 'Cause they're terrible and you know exactly what you're getting.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to pretend. We know
No,
exactly what we're getting.
they're the Marvel movies of cars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, only Marvel is deeper.
Much deeper, mostly,
Much deeper.
usually.
Yeah.
I
But
will
anyway,
say the best thing about Fast and Furious X was Jason Momoa.
oh my god, I love him so much.
That was if he was in that, that would have been a pretty bad Fast and Furious movie.
True story. True
Yeah.
story. Jason Momoa is amazing, and also when he was filming, I think the show he was on, I don't remember. Anyways, he plays, I think, an indigenous person on it.
Oh,
Um,
right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you remember what the title is?
No. Actually, I got it right here. No, I mean, not it exactly, but
Yeah.
he's a indigenous person, and he is
Yeah.
a trapper and hunter.
Yeah. Anyways, when he was filming that, he lived a block over from my house. So, like, I'd see him in the neighborhood all the time, so it was fun
Oh,
when
I
I
would
was
have been trying
watching.
to talk to him nonstop.
Well, first time I saw him,
You
I
would
was
have
like,
I would have had a restraining order.
well, me and my sister had this little joke, like, every time we'd be up on the balcony, I'd hear a motorcycle, and
Frontier.
so I just, like, a Frontier, there we go.
Yeah.
So I would just scream out, I'm like, every time I heard a motorcycle, I'd be like, "Jason! Jason, is that you?" My neighborhood thinks I'm nuts. It's fine. But yeah, no, every time I'd see him around, like I saw him once across the street when I was waiting for the streetcar, and it took me a hot second to figure it out because I was like, that looks like Jason Momoa. I was not wearing my glasses. He was also wearing a full length leopard print coat. So it's like, is that? Yeah, that's him. And I've seen him a couple other times, but he's awesome. And yes, he did very well for Fast and Furious. But yeah, no, I didn't watch all the Death Wish sequels, unfortunately.
Did you
I
watch the remake
I
with
didn't
Bruce
watch the
Willis?
remake.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even know there was a remake, which is
Yeah.
weird.
And it's one of Bruce Willis's last big
Performances or
not one
big
of his
ones?
last performance, but big budget ones.
Uh,
Because he did a lot of straight to video, I would call it straight to
yeah.
VOD. But yeah, I actually liked it. I thought it was pretty good.
I like it when Bruce Willis has a mission.
Yeah, I like Bruce Willis. I'm so
Yeah.
sad that we're not getting any more Bruce Willis.
I know. I'm like, and when I heard, I was like, oh God, that's gotta be so hard, especially for someone who uses so much of their mind for their work.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently he had to have earpieces in and they fed him his
Yeah.
lines. Yeah. Oh well. Well, to Charles Bronson's Death Wish, let's go to the box office. Do 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 do. Released July 24th, 1974, a budget of 3.7 million. It was in release for 892 days, 127 weeks, and made a domestic total of 22 million. That's a pretty good return.
Um, that's nuts. It was
And
it was out for 2 years.
Well, and we got to remember a lot of the times back then they only made so many, and they sometimes moved from city to city, or they
Yeah,
opened up in major cities, and like even Star Wars didn't open up across
yeah.
North America.
Still, it was making the rotation for more
Yeah,
than 2 years. That's
yeah.
nuts.
So nice return on 3.7 million.
It's a fantastic
Oh,
return.
all right, let's go to the tail of the tape. There's our laser disc of Death Wish for
Ooh.
those listening. It's a big record with with big pictures on it.
Lazy.
1974, yeah.
Mhm.
1974 crime drama, rated R, and comes in at an actually nice lean 1 hour and 33 minutes. I was kind of surprised.
Respectable.
Yeah.
Respectable. This is gonna be so light on story, it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah. And taglines. Judge, jury, executioner. I think this was the first movie to use that as a tagline.
Yeah. Honestly, it works.
Yeah. Vigilante city style, judge, jury, and executioner.
No, the extra words did nothing.
I think, yeah, I agree. Just the
It just
three is
ruined it.
fine.
Yeah.
An explosive story of urban violence and revenge.
No. No.
No, they had it with
The judge, jury, executioner, that's all you need.
yep.
That tells the entire story right there.
Synopsis. There's our VHS copy. Once a mild-mannered liberal, fucking liberal pansies. New
Hey!
York City architect Paul Kersey, Charles Bronson, snaps when intruders break into his home, murdering his wife. Okay, so I didn't even read this. Murdering his wife, Hope Lang, and violently raping his daughter. I don't remember this.
Oh.
A business trip to Tucson, Arizona lands him a gift from a client, a revolver he uses to patrol the streets when he returns home. Frustrated that the police cannot find the intruders, he becomes a vigilante, gunning down any criminal that crosses his path. The public finds the vigilantism heroic.
I
And
mean,
this was also a time in the 70s. New York was, I wouldn't say call it the Wild West, but it was dirty. There was a lot of violence. There was
it's very different from present day New York. The
yeah,
gentrification had not hit. Like, they built up the neighborhoods, then there was a natural downturn. There were a lot of gangs. There
yeah.
was a lot of, lower income and kind of not criminal, but it wasn't as snazzy as it is now. Like, no one was paying $2,000 for a room that didn't even have a bathroom. You know?
No,
Now they are,
now they are.
where the
No.
bathroom's down the hall. I've seen
Oh
those
yeah.
apartments. I was like, "This is a closet, and there's a bathroom down the hall, and you want someone to pay $2,000?"
Yeah. Let's go to
Mm,
Rotten Tomatoes. 32 critic reviews give this movie 66%.
okay,
10,000 audience reviews, 69%. So it's not bad.
that's not bad. That's not bad.
I will say this, when I was looking stuff up, this is the highest of all the Death Wish movies, even the remake.
I mean,
I think one has a 0. I don't know which number that is. I think one has like an 8. One has like a 51 or a 48 or something like that. But yeah,
I
there's
wanna
some
watch them all.
yeah.
Wanna watch them all.
Critics consensus. Death Wish is undeniably exploitation fare and also undeniably effective.
Interesting.
All right, let's start with the fresh. You may go first.
I'm ready. First, and easily the best, Dark Adventure of Vigilante Paul Kersey. Scott Weinberg, efilmcritic.com, original score 4 out of 5.
A minor classic that surpasses all expectations. Oz, efilmcritic.com. Original score, 4 out of 5.
Interesting. Sumptuously photographed and scored, the movie is an excellent capsule of 70s filmmaking. Thrilling, thought provoking, and sending us off with a wink at the end. Kurt Dahlke, Apollo Guide, original score 79 out of 100.
Hmm,
It's an interesting marking system.
yeah. There's an undeniable thrill when Bronson blows away some sleazy mugger. Jeffrey M. Anderson, combustible celluloid. Original score not available. But he liked it. He liked Bronson shooting people in the
Obviously.
face.
Solid, if morally suspect revenge thriller. Ken Hankey, Mountain Express, original score 3 out of 5.
Good old
I
Ken.
I do like morally suspect revenge thrillers.
It's both fascinating and uncomfortable, as a story like this should be. Not everything clicks, especially in the final act, but it's still a well made thriller that's worth more than a mere surface level reading. Keith Garlington, Keith and the movie's original score, 4 out of 5.
Interesting. The movie has an eerie kind of fascination, even though its message is scary. Roger Ebert, Chicago Sun-Times, original score 3 out of 4.
Hmm.
Interesting. I want to see what the message he thinks is being delivered.
Ron, I'll start. Although we may find the views expressed in Death Wish unacceptable on any level, still, the basic storyline, despite its idiotic perspective, might have made an interesting film had it been handled properly. Gregory Mims, New Pittsburgh Courier, original score not available.
Director Michael Winner in Englishman has created a simplistic urban western of good guys and bad guys that will conform to every paranoid's crime fantasies. Maureen Orth, Newsweek, original score not available.
The violence is excessive and the plot predictable, although there is some style to director Winner's approach. TV Guide, original score, 2 out of 4.
It's a despicable movie, one that raises complex questions in order to offer bigoted, frivolous, oversimplified answers. Vincent Canby, New York Times, original score 2 out of 5. I think Vincent was a little annoyed at the portrayal of New York. That's what I think.
All right, IMDb, voice of reason when it comes to movie reviews. 44,000 user ratings plus, give this 6.9 out of 10. Again, that's not bad.
It's not bad. It's not, especially for what this is.
Yeah.
And I think we should also remember that the New York that ends up on film in the 70s is not the most accurate portrayal of what New York actually was in the 70s.
No, they embellished a bit, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there were streets you didn't want to walk down.
Well, yeah, there
But
were. But I mean,
oh yeah, every city,
every town has those. Everybody has them.
yeah.
But I have a feeling it got a little too
I think with me
enthusiastic
and
in this one.
I think with me and all my kids here, I think we're one of those streets. Don't go down that. That's where the Coates are.
My neighborhood and my street used to be one of those streets. And now they gentrified us. Now we're bougie. So bougie. Anywho, let's see what IMDb had to say.
All right. You may go first.
May not be the right answer, but it's far from the wrong one. 10 out of 10, Mark Waltz.
Blam, blam, blam. Take that, scumbags. 9 out of 10, B.A. Harrison.
When Paul Kersey's killing spree begins, you itch for it and welcome his release. 8 out of 10, Frederick Gunner.
Yeah.
That's a little Frederick. That's bordering on gross. FYI.
That's either very deep or very dark.
Or both.
Or both. An escapist fantasy for boomers and Gen Xers. 7 out of 10. Some Okie dude. Okay, Okie dude. What, for one, we weren't even born. It's not like we were and it's not like Gen Xers were seeing this movie. Yeah, this was definitely boomers, and then what's the ones that before boomers? The silent ones?
The silent ones. Yeah.
The silent smackers.
My dad is a part of the silent generation. Are you Gen X?
Am I?
Yeah.
Yes.
You okay. I just made it into Gen X.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I'm near the end. I'm near the end there. But even still, that's still.
But still, I was like, I don't think any of us were looking for vigilanteism.
Yeah, that came in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we got Nicolas Cage in every action movie.
We needed time to get angry to want to blow shit up.
Yeah.
They've got a wish for death. 6 out of 10. Wanderer Amor. It's a weird name.
Yeah. Undeniably potent, but vicious, ugly, lacerating. 5 out of 10. Moonspinner 55.
Somebody used the dictionary. About as subtle as a sledgehammer to the kneecaps. 4 out of 10. Howlin' Wolf.
Disgusting. 3 out of 10. Jithin Durden.
Pretty boring. A Nixon voters film. 2 out of 10. Quit wasting my time.
See, Nixon's vote. Yes, that's more
I
your.
could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's your conservatives, Republican. Yeah,
Yeah.
NRA
Ugh,
cheering.
don't get me started. Also, I hate how they said like he's a mild-mannered liberal.
That's awesome.
I'm like, so what? He turns into an angry conservative by the end of it? No wonder
Turns
he's running around with an unregistered gun. I'm just saying.
turns into a man with a gun, but he becomes a
Liberals have
man
guns.
before he was a liberal.
What?
I don't know. I used to think I was liberal. I'm a '90s liberal.
Oh, I'm right
90
now.
early 2000s liberal.
Right now, I'm in my burn it all to the ground and start over phase. I don't think we have
Yeah.
a political party that covers that.
No. Well, we do. But we defeated them at World War II.
Oh my god.
Christ. They made 4 sequels to this. 1 out of 10. Curiosity killed Sean.
Get Curiosity killed Sean. You're actually pretty funny.
Yeah, Curiosity killed Sean had a few. We've had a few that were of his or hers that were good.
Yeah.
All right. So we did the box office. We looked at the tail of the tape. We looked at the reviews. Now let's look at this original 1974 trailer. Wait, I got to make sure it's not too loud here. Last time I blew out my ears. All right, here we go. Watch the trailer, make our prediction.
In New York City. Groceries, man. Hey, Mother.
My name is Paul Kersey. How's my wife?
I'm sorry. She died a few minutes ago, Mr. Kersey.
Any chance of catching these men?
There's a chance, sure.
Just a chance.
I'd be less than honest if I gave you more hope, Mr. Kersey.
This is Paul Kersey. This is the story of a man who decided to clean up the most violent town in the world.
Listen, turn around. Give me the money.
He begins where all the super cops leave off.
Bugging has gone down by how much, sir?
$9.50 a week to $4.70, he reported last week.
You understand not too many people know that.
And you want to keep it that way, huh?
Oh, no, we have to keep it that way, Inspector. This whole city would explode.
And if this person is listening to my voice, I urge him in the name of law and order to desist from this one-man crusade and turn himself into the police.
Let's see the money, man.
Call him a mad vigilante. Call him a hero. Either way, he's always on target.
We want you to get out of New York. Permanently.
Never make a death wish. Because a death wish always comes true. And you get to love it.
That's awesome.
This is gonna be so cheesy. I'm so excited.
How many people does that fucker kill?
But the best part is, it's like, give me your money. Done.
Yeah.
Shot. Yeah, cuts his newspaper. Shot. I'm like, dude, was that a killing offense? I feel like that might be a little extreme.
No, Charles Bronson's like, kill them all, let God sort them out.
You fucked up my newspaper.
So what's your when he was target practicing, for those listening, he was good.
He was very good for, a mild-mannered liberal who had never
for a
picked up
liberal.
gun before. I mean,
He goes Republican real quickly.
the best part is, like, most of the liberals when I say liberal, I don't mean like actual liberal party. I mean more left-leaning people. we're bloodthirsty motherfuckers. So I'm like, it makes more sense for us to be carrying around a gun and being vigilantes than someone who's not a mild-mannered liberal. Anyways, I really need to calm down. I think I'm gonna like this. I think it's gonna be cheesy as fuck, and I think there's gonna be a lot of like roll your eyes and like jokes you can make off of it. But I think that's what I'm gonna like about it the most.
Yeah, I agree. This looks very 70s, and it
Yes,
looks very cheesy. I think I'm gonna like it.
I think so too.
Charles Bronson doesn't really he he's kind of the same character in every movie he play every movie I remember watching. But I do like Charles Bronson. So,
I'm
all
sure
right.
you'll love it.
Well, we are gonna go watch Death Wish, and when we get back, we are going to review it.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And now, on with the show.
Ooh, wasn't that fun, kids? Blam, blam, blam. Take that, you liberal bitches.
Yeah, I don't think anybody who actually got shot in this movie was a liberal. Just saying. I don't think any of them voted.
Did you watch the 1974 original, the grandfather of modern vigilante movies, Death Wish?
I did.
Your initial thoughts?
This movie is special. So special. It kind of reminded me, I didn't have this in high school, but when you watch the movie Dodgeball and they have that like movie that they played in school that teaches you the game of dodgeball that was made in the 50s?
Yeah.
This feels like that type of movie, but for guns rights enthusiasts.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying afterwards, I was like, I don't know what the fuck just happened. That was weird. What did you think?
Well, sometimes you forget how much you like an actor, and I do like Charles Bronson. 3 of my all-time favorite movies, which I have admittedly a lot of them. But Dirty Dozen is easily a top 5 war movie. The Great Escape is easily top 5, if not a top 3. Actually, I have a lot of favorite war movies. Top 5 would be a tough list. But The Magnificent Seven, top 5 westerns. Once Upon a Time in the West, not a top 5, but a favorite nonetheless. All of them had Charles Bronson in them. I forgot, and it made me want to watch more Charles Bronson movies. But first, he was 53 when he did this movie. He looked great. That man was in shape for 1974.
He did look great.
He looked like, and that first scene in Hawaii, like I'm like, damn, man, the
Well,
hell.
it was funny because my first note that I wrote is her bathing suit covers more than his.
Oh yeah, easy.
Walking around a little Speedo.
I'm kind of like you. I like the movie, but for many different reasons. Nostalgia for a time I wasn't even around.
Yeah.
The cinematography, the score, the dialogue, the overacting, the abundance of stereotypes, the bad acting,
the overacting, the underacting, the not acting, the caricature-ishness of the majority of the characters, and the weird obsession that the detective had with nose and throat sprays. I was like, what is happening in this movie? So much to unpack.
I wondered, actually, like I kind of made a note. I'm like, I don't think that was in the script. I think they hired him and he came sick.
Well, it's either he came sick or he decided that was his
Or
thing.
that was his
Like,
character
because you know how
development.
there's always that actor who's like, but there needs to be a thing. This character needs a thing. And then they do something stupid for the entire movie. I
Yeah.
think that was this guy and his sprays, his
It's
various
like
sprays.
Brad Pitt in one of the heist movies there, the 11.
Ocean's
I
11.
think he was quitting smoking. So every scene he was eating something.
He was eating something or chewing gum
Yeah.
through and it drove me nuts because you kept seeing him like pick up candies, and I was
Yeah.
like, but he decided that was his thing. And the problem is when an actor chooses that thing that doesn't actually have anything to do with the character, they're just like, this is a fun quirk. We all notice it, and we're all wondering why you're doing it. And it drives me bananas. But anyways.
All right. Well, let's go over the movie. And I just looked ahead here before we came on, and Wikipedia starts a little later. So the movie actually opens on a beach in Hawaii where Kersey, Charles Bronson, is taking pictures of his wife. They're sad that they're heading home soon. Kersey is like, hey, mama, your body isn't as chiseled as mine, but let's do this.
She looked fine for maybe, and whatever. She was probably 23 when she filmed this, playing a 40-year-old. Now I'm very, very curious. But she looked amazing in her little bathing suit. I was like, girl, you should be wearing a two-piece. You look great.
Yeah, I wonder if, because I don't know if the 70s were quite as bad as like the 80s and 90s, where they're like, okay, the dude's 50, so we need a 22-year-old as his wife.
Well, I just looked it up, and there's a 12-year age difference. So she was about
She was
40.
41. Yeah, so that's not bad for Hollywood. Holy
for
shit.
Hollywood, but then she's supposed to play. That's why I was so confused when we get introduced to their daughter, and I was like, she's a whole ass like adult.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, these people look like they're in their 40s, like early 40s. Who has a whole ass adult who's married as a child? Anyways.
Yeah. And she's like, okay, well, let's go back to the hotel. And he's like, this is dude on the beach.
Right?
Now, I have never humped on the beach. I'll be honest. But I have been to the beach many times. I couldn't think of a worse place to do it than on the beach.
It's not fun. Sand gets in places that sand should not be, and it never leaves.
I've gone to the beach. I've come home and showered 2 or 3 times, and I still had fucking sand somewhere.
This is terrible. This is why I hate the beach. And I'm like, look, I don't mind. I love the ocean. So if you can get me like to a dock or off a boat, no problem. You take me to a sandy beach, I get so angry because I'm like, sand ends up in everything between your toes, in your hair, in crevices of your body that you're like, sand should not be there. And it never leaves. You shower multiple times. Days later, you're still finding sand.
Yeah.
I hate sand so much.
Yeah. Interesting bit of trivia. This isn't, I don't think this is in our trivia segment. The director added these scenes so he could connect the photos to Kersey gets later on in the movie. But these weren't originally part of the script or the book.
Okay, that makes sense because it did feel, I was like, oh, okay, they're establishing their relationship.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was. But I'm like, we're just getting a little, I was like, they're on vacation. Okay, I don't get it. And then all of a sudden we're in New York and it's a very different vibe.
Yes.
Also, can we just, because I'm gonna talk about the music through the entire thing. Herbie Hancock was who did the music and the score.
Yeah, I think that's in trivia too. I'm not 100% sure. Something about Herbie Hancock in
Herbie Hancock did it all, and
it was like, great.
It was great, but sometimes I was like, it felt very, very experimental, and I realized I was like, oh, okay, I get it. It's a little jarring, especially with what I'm watching on screen, but I was like, I see what you're doing here. It was very
it reminded me a lot of the first Planet of the Apes with Charlton Heston. Those weird sounds and yeah.
It was really interesting, and I kind of want to listen to the score on its own.
Yeah, because it was a very nice score when they were in Hawaii, and then that difference when it does that quick shot to Dino De Laurentiis' Death Wish, and it's New York, and it was very different as it went along.
I have a feeling it was Herbie Hancock in the studio and just like riffing and creating as it went. It was Very interesting. Incredibly performed.
Oh yeah.
Incredibly performed. Sometimes I thought it was a little aggressive. Like, I think when the music changes, when they're going from Hawaii to New York, there was such an abrupt change. I was like, "Whoa."
Yeah, so
That's
jarring.
very
Yeah.
jarring. Yeah. But now that makes sense. If those original scenes weren't originally in the thing, then they're like, and now we're in gritty New York, and here's the vibe. And I'm like, but you don't need to be so aggressive about it.
Okay, so this is where Wikipedia picks up. Paul Kersey is a middle-aged architect who lives in Manhattan with his wife, Joanna. One day, Joanna and their grown daughter, Carol, are followed home by 3 muggers. The trio invade the Kersey apartment by posing as delivery men. Jeff Goldblum was one of our muggers, and this was his first film role.
He
was horrible. He wasn't the worst. He was probably the best mugger out of the 3 of them.
One of them literally looked like he was in the middle of a psychotic break.
Yeah.
Which was concerning. But they also, one looked like he was just almost sedated. Like he was so mellow. The one with the spray paint. Yeah. He was having a time. And I was like, what the fuck? These guys were all, and I was like, who? But they had the wherewithal to be like, we're going to follow them home. They look rich.
Yeah.
And we're going to check their address and follow them, figure out to go through the service entrance. I was like, none of this makes sense.
They were brighter than they looked.
Apparently.
Because they didn't look very bright at all.
No, and they weren't behaving very bright.
No.
It's this whole thing is just, actually I made a note. I'm like, Jeff Goldblum is creeping me out.
Yeah, and only 4 years later, he was co-starring in Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
I know. He was really good in this, though. He creeped me out. The other 2 are just weird.
Yeah.
But all 3 of them, I was like, this is, but okay. But I just want to kind of go back because when you see Paul Kersey in his office, he's having a conversation with a coworker. And I guess they really wanted to drive home the point that he's apparently, and I quote, a bleeding heart liberal.
Yes.
And then,
I actually had a note saying his buddy's giving the murder statistics while he was gone and writing him for being so much of a liberal.
And he was like, he made a comment about, the coworker was like, there should be concentration camps. We should put them all in concentration camps. And I was like, whoa, it's a little intense. And then the coworker called New York a war zone. And he said that there should be more cops than people. And Kersey's character doesn't really fight it, but he's not really like, I'm like, you're not giving bleeding heart liberal. You're just like, well, I guess that's your opinion. And well, if there were more cops than people, then we would have a different set of problems. And I'm like, I know you're trying to push home the point that he's like super liberal.
Yeah.
But it's not coming across that way. He just seems like a regular guy who's like, we should fund social programs.
Yeah. Maybe back then. I don't know. But I agree with you. He didn't come across as super liberal at all.
Yeah, well, I would expect, especially for like the mid 70s. I'm like, give me a little something like he was a big protester.
Yeah.
Or he was in this, like a little more passion. Because that's also a note that I have for Charles Bronson for this entire thing. I'm like, I don't know when he's angry. I don't know when he's sad. I don't know when he's really happy, other than the one scene with his son-in-law, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. So Joanne and Carol and the daughter are grocery shopping, and these hooligans are running through the grocery store, just being rascals and doing well what rascals do. Did you see the gang members at the checkout? It was $2 for a 6-pack of beer and a can of spray paint.
$2.17.
17 cents.
$2.17.
Damn, the spray paint were always the most expensive thing there.
Probably. And I was just like, that's fucking ridiculous. You can maybe get one can of cheap beer for $2.
For $2, yeah. And like, I know people weren't making as much, but you're probably making like $6, $7, $8 an hour.
Yeah.
And you could buy $2, get a spray paint bottle and a 6-pack of beer.
Yeah.
And Joanna gets her groceries and ask for them to be delivered, and the gang members get the address off the groceries at her mailbox. Discovering that the women only have $7 on them, the goons beat Joanna and sexually assault Carol before fleeing. That's his Wikipedia. Yes, it wasn't, because I was kind of like bracing for, not that it was good, but it wasn't an actual rape. It was sexual assault.
It was still jarring. Like, it was a little jarring, but I was like I was bracing for a rape scene too.
Yes, I was expecting a lot worse. Not that that wasn't bad or anything, but since then we've seen a lot worse. So,
well, the part that kind of got me, like the actual sexual assault itself, you don't see that much of it.
No.
You see her being held down. We should totally put a trigger warning on this podcast, by the way. So you see her being held down and you see her clothes being ripped off of her.
Yeah.
But I mean, sadly, that's not out of the realm of normality for film.
Yeah.
The part that I found the most was the degrading parts.
That when they're talking to her, and
when they're talking, the way they're talking,
the way they were talking, spray painting
her, and it was just, I was like,
and like I said, I've seen a lot worse since then in action movies, horror movies. But I'm guessing for 1974, it was quite.
I'm sure that would have been scandalous.
Yeah,
and it would have definitely been deemed exploitative.
Oh yeah,
exploitative.
Yeah,
exploitative. Anyways, it was a very jarring scene. Although, kind of wanted Mom to look a little more beat up.
Yeah, I get to that. At the hospital, Joanna dies from her injuries. After her funeral, Paul has an encounter with a mugger. Paul fights back with a homemade weapon, causing the mugger to run away. Okay, so first they get to the hospital, and the doctors couldn't save Joanna, and I'm like, really?
Yeah,
couldn't save her. I know she got kicked and punched and thrown around, but it didn't look like
she
death was coming.
Yeah, she didn't look that bad.
No.
Which is terrible. It looked like they just kind of flicked red paint on her.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
Rhyming grizzly.
It was
honestly, I take more of a beating when my wife sees the credit card statement at the end of the month. You bought fucking what?
Well, she got kicked a few times. She got pistol whipped a few times.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't get me wrong, that hurts. She'd probably had a severe concussion, maybe even a brain bleed. And at this point, because I just looked it up, the CT machine was invented in 1967. So it wasn't exactly, widely used.
Readily
available. So I'm like, I understand they wouldn't have been able to find it, but I was like, I kind of wanted her, like, have a bruise, have a cut lip, something.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden she's dead. And I was like, what? Also, can I just flag this real quick? After they leave and Carol gets up from the couch and she goes to the phone to call the police. The way she moved was it was very reminiscent of someone who is possessed by a demon.
Oh, maybe that's what they're going for.
Maybe, but I was like I know she's supposed to be like forcing herself to move, and it's almost debilitating. I'm like, I get that, but she kind of did like dead arms that kind of like flounced, and I was like, I've seen this movement before. And then I think it was like The Haunting of Hannah Grace.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, you're moving like all of those girls who are usually possessed in movies by like demons and stuff. I'm like, I don't know if that's what they were going for, or if they were just like, you need to make it look more laborious. Like, it's really, really hard for you. And that was her choice. But it definitely took me out of the movie. And it kind of lessened my sympathy for the character.
Yeah. And
I got pulled out.
I agree with you. And I'll chalk that up to they were in new territory.
Yeah.
because nowadays when you see movies where even when people are getting beaten, you look at them and you go, Jesus, they look like you feel their pain.
Yeah.
It's gotten that much better, but yeah, I think it was kind of new and they didn't really know.
I think it was just they didn't have the experience.
Yes.
And also those scenes would have been just absolutely groundbreaking at the time. Like it would have pushed every envelope.
Oh,
Whereas now film has pushed the envelope so far they're flying off a cliff. Like
yeah. And I will say Kersey was taking his wife's death very well.
Can I tell you? That man.
He was like, oh, my wife's dead. Okay.
And then at the graveside.
I thought he stayed with them when he was like, oh, I got to get back home. I got to get back home sooner or later. I got to start living. And I thought, oh, must have been there for a few weeks. It was like 2 days.
Yeah. But apparently he made a best friend.
Yeah. Life goes on.
Dude, this entire...
Like he skipped all the steps of grieving and jumped right to acceptance. Like
it was just like he gets told and he's like, okay. And then like he's burying his wife and then he's at work 2 days later. And I'm like, sir, you just spent the first part of the movie with you guys in Hawaii telling us how much you love your wife. And now you're acting like she was the neighbor 2 doors down.
Yeah.
That you spoke to at holidays. I'm like, come on. Give me something.
Yeah, I guess
cry a little.
It wasn't as liberal as he thought. Was it me or was the son-in-law annoying as shit?
How much did I want to punch him?
Yeah.
I wanted to punch him so much.
The
and I was
dad
like,
thing?
Mom, it's mom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did she marry her brother? What the fuck?
Yeah, because a few times I was like, okay, was the daughter married in and this was his actual son? Or
no.
For those listening, he calls Charles Bronson Kersey dad. He always.
This is
and a lot.
No offense to you. It's a white people thing where they call their in-laws like mom and dad.
Yeah.
This is not a thing that we do in the Portuguese community. Like you will never hear it.
Yeah. See, I don't do it. I know there are people that do. I don't do it. I'm like, you're not my daddy.
What? Say it again.
I don't even know my daddy. He left when I was 2.
I shouldn't laugh, but that was funny. No, but it was very creepy when he's like, dad, it's mom.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, is that no, it's the husband. Okay, that's weird. And then the daughter after the attack is basically catatonic, but not really. Because she can walk.
Yeah, she can walk
like I was like, this is all very odd, but fine. But I did want to punch the son-in-law, Jack, motherfucker.
Oh yeah, he was very liberal
from the beginning. It's not why I wanted to punch him. Okay, it's not why I wanted to punch him. I wanted to punch him because immediately he gave me the vibe. I was like, "You've been cheating on your wife, haven't you?"
Yeah,
like
overcompensating.
Like, you've got a mistress somewhere.
Seriously, overcompensating.
You want to commit your wife so you can move your mistress into your house. This is very like 1890s. Let's have her diagnosed with hysteria. But yeah, no, I really didn't like him. He was not overly sympathetic. And
well, yeah, because she was going through the trauma. And in the olden days, when you acted crazy, you went bye-bye. You were off to the loony bin.
Even if you didn't act crazy.
Yeah.
Like women were getting committed because they didn't agree with their husbands, or they had a lot of land that their husband and or father or uncle wanted.
Yeah.
So they were like, she's hysterical. Let's just have her committed and I'll take over all of her property.
Or they were talking crazy, like I want a credit card in my own name and
or saying things like, I want to be able to spend my own inheritance.
Yeah. I want to get a part-time job.
Yeah, I should be able to eat food that I actually like and not just scraps from the table. That kind of stuff. Silly. I can't speak English today. It's been a difficult day.
Like if you're listening and you're younger, back in the day, if you were trying to perform, exorcisms on pigeons, screaming at lampposts that they owe you money, trying to fuck a tree, 2 or 3 dudes in white suits would show up and in a van and quote unquote persuade you to go for a ride to a really nice place. So sometimes I think they should bring that shit back.
Oh Lord. Also, where they took you was not a very nice hospital.
No. But you're not going to get someone to willfully get into a van with you if you tell them exactly where they're going.
Well, no. Of course
Hey,
not.
buddy, you're not feeling well? Come with us. We're going to take you to a real awesome place. Pump
You'll
you
be
full
able
of
to rest there.
drugs. You can just sit there and drool.
Oh, mental health. We've made some strides, but not enough.
No, here I am talking. There's your... Paul is left shaken and energized by the encounter. Oh yeah, we were talking about he fought off a mugger.
Yeah.
Paul's boss sends him to Tucson. To Tucson, Arizona. He didn't want to go, but his son-in-law was like, his daughter doesn't want to be around him because he reminds her of her mom, and so he decides to go to Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah.
And to work with a real estate developer, Ames Janechel, a client with a residential development project. This is where we meet Ames. I liked Ames.
I liked Ames so much.
Yeah, he was cool.
I also liked his philosophy on building. I was like, yes, Ames, don't you dare knock down any of those hills. You make it so nature and people can live together. Yes.
Yeah, because not only does he make fun of Kersey's liberalism, he shits on New York a lot.
He really does. But I mean, I get it. But
yeah.
I take insults to New York kind of personally because my dad had the opportunity to stay in New York. His sister was living there at the time. He went there for a month. He had already immigrated to Canada. But his sister was living there and she's like, come stay with me for a month, see if you like it. Because she wanted him to move down there. He went, he stayed in New York. They were living in Manhattan. And I think he was working there too, probably under the table cash money. So he stayed for a month and then his sister's like, so do you want to stay forever? And he was like, no, there's too many people. It's too busy. It's too dirty. I don't like it here. And he came back to Canada and I looked my dad dead in the face and I was like, you mean I could have been a New Yorker?
Yeah.
I could have been
that would have been in the 70s, wouldn't it? Or was it the 60s?
60s. It was the 60s. He had only been in Canada, I think, for a year. He hadn't married my mom yet. Actually, no, he had only been in Canada for about 6 or 7 months. And then his sister was like, come visit me for a month and stay. And my dad was like, nah, I'm going to stick with Canada. So I'm a little bitter that I didn't get to be a New Yorker because also she lived in the really like what's now super cool in the Village. Like that area in Chelsea used to be the Portuguese area. And that's where she lived. And I was like, we could have lived in the Village. You said no. And he was like, it was dirty. I don't want to live there. And I was like, okay. So he came back to Canada and now I'm Canadian. It's fine. I'm not mad.
Paul is eventually invited to dinner by Ames at his gun club. Ames is impressed with Paul's pistol marksmanship at the target range. No shit.
That's also where you find out about his dad, who was a gun enthusiast and a hunter, getting killed by another hunter, and his mom, who was anti-gun, basically banning guns after the father was killed.
Yeah,
I'm like, valid, I get it.
Yeah, because Paul was because we find out he was a conscientious objector during the Korean War when he served as a combat medic. He had been taught to handle firearms by his hunter father, but after Senior Kersey was mortally wounded by a second hunter who mistook Paul's father for a deer. I've never been in that situation. How the fuck do you mistake a majestic wood creature like a deer with a big fat middle-aged man carrying a rifle?
Well, here's the thing. Some people are bad hunters and they shouldn't have guns.
That's what I mean.
You know what helps with that? Gun control.
And
regulations.
Absolutely, because I'm fine with guns and hunters, but they should have a test, like one where it's like those cutouts, those wooden cutouts of deers and bears and humans. And if you shoot more than 3 humans because you thought they were deer,
yeah, have them moving through the forest and then like these little do something. Because look, I know a lot of people, right? And I know some Americans, God bless, and some of them are very enthusiastic about guns, but they take gun safety very seriously. And I'm like, cool. I don't know if they're super Second Amendmenters, and I'm not gonna like ask because I like them, so I don't want to fuck that up. Um, but it's one of those things where I think a lot of people don't realize, especially in like the 60s and 70s, the US was just like crazy for guns.
Oh
And there
yeah.
was no real regulations or any like, well, there were kind of regulations. There was a whole thing. God bless with the Black Panthers. I think in the late 60s, early 70s, when the NRA was kind of being like, everybody should have a gun. Black Panthers
Yeah.
said, I agree wholeheartedly. So they all went out and got guns. And then that's when gun like regulations and
Yeah.
gun
And then they're
control
like,
came in.
well, we
And
didn't
I'm
mean everyone.
not you guys.
Not you people.
Not you guys. Not everybody should have a gun. Let's revise. And now we're going the opposite way again, where everybody should have a gun. I'm like, no, not everybody should have a gun.
I was just thinking, like, could you imagine being shot? You'd be like, God damn it, Rufus, you fucking shot me. God, I thought you was a deer. I'm standing right beside you, you some bitch.
Well, that's why a lot of hunters now wear those like orange,
oh yeah, those
like
orange
neon vests. And I'm like, but they wear camouflage underneath the vest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why don't you just wear regular clothes? Why are you wearing camouflage? We can see you. And that's kind of the point. But yeah, no, there are a lot of people who should not have guns, but apparently Paul Kersey, for better or for worse, in this movie, he needed to have a gun.
Yeah. I just imagine like some guy on the scope and he's like, God damn, that deer's holding a beer and a gun just before he shoots the dude.
I'm trying also a lot of deer, like unless they're super young, they're bigger than humans.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
And on 4 legs. I'm just, how do you, anyways.
Yeah.
We could talk about this forever.
Paul's mother made him swear never to use guns again. Paul helps Ames plan his residential housing development. This is a country thing. I like not a country as in like the United States or up in Canada. This is like people that grew up in the country, and probably some people that wish they did. Like, don't touch the mountains. Don't put houses too close together. No one should hear your neighbor flush. And because like I always grew up with no neighbors. Like you couldn't even see a neighbor down the road. So it is a very much country living type of mentality.
Yeah. I grew up with 2 neighbors attached to me and hearing everything happening in their houses. Like you get used to it, but I can understand wanting to have space, but also space makes me nervous.
If you grew up because I used to go to the city to visit family in the summertime and stuff, and it was way different. But yeah, if you grew up in the city and then went out into country, you'd be like, holy fuck, what the fuck is going on?
I always tell, because I have a friend who lives in Cambridge, and every time I go out to visit her, like she lives, it's not super rural where her neighborhood, but she has a very big plot and she's got like a walking path behind her yard, her backyard. But I'm like, girl, this is too country for me. This is too country for me. And she's like, Cambridge is a city. I'm like, I know, technically.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this is where the serial killers and like in horror movies, this is where I die. I don't die in my house in Toronto. I die here in your backyard because someone's going to come from the wilderness that's behind you. She's like, but it's nice. I'm like, I'm not saying it's not nice. I'm saying that's where the killer comes from.
Yeah. I think I saw a guy with a hockey mask. It's my neighbor, dumbass.
Or, someone wearing a weird Halloween mask, wearing a jumpsuit. I mean, these things happen. Okay. It's very uncomfortable.
Ames drives Paul back to Tucson Airport and places a gift as a thank you for his work on the project into Paul's checked luggage. Wikipedia skips over the shootout or the stage show. They go to his office, which is part of a fully functional Old West town that they sometimes shoot movies there. And then tourists come from all over to check it out. And they watch this act of a sheriff being attacked by outlaws, and it turns into a shootout. This movie is not very subtle.
No. It's not subtle at all. And that little town, Old Tucson, is a real thing.
Yes.
And I love that idea because I'm like, can I
I would like to
live
go
there?
there.
I'd like to go there too. But yeah, no, it really pushed the whole, you need to take care of it yourself. There's only one answer to these problems, and it's
Yeah,
a
and it's a
gun.
sheriff, and he's on the right
Yeah,
side of
like doing the right thing, and you
doing the right
can't
thing.
like the country way is the right way to do it, the cowboy way. And it was very like, and it revisits that at the end, but there's nothing like during that big chunk where he's, going around killing everybody. You don't really get like Old West other than the way he like pulls out his gun.
Yes. Yeah. In Manhattan, Paul learns that Carol's mind has snapped due to the trauma and caused by Joanne's death, the mother. Carol is now catatonic and an elective mute, with great refusals to speak to her husband, Jack especially. With Paul's blessing, Jack commits Carol to a mental rehabilitation institute. Did he get his blessing?
Well, he put her first. Jack puts her in the hospital.
Yeah.
And when Paul comes back, he's like, so what's going on? And he's like, well, she can either stay here until the insurance runs out.
That's right.
And then
Yes.
I can find a cheap hospital for her. He's like, and Paul's like, well, what does the committed route look like? And he says, well, then it costs me less money, but it's pretty much like, that's the final decision. We're just committing her. And then Paul's like, well, you got to do what you got to do.
Yep.
And then Jack's like, yeah, I'm going to commit her.
Gonna start living again.
And then I'm going to move my girlfriend into the apartment.
Yeah. Paul opens Ames' gift to discover that it is a Colt 32 caliber revolver with a box of ammunition and a cleaning kit. He loads a gun, takes a late night walk, and is mugged at gunpoint. Paul fatally shoots the mugger. Hawaii work, attack, wife dies, daughter's assaulted, funeral, daughter goes nuts, goes to Arizona, comes back to shoot his first scumbag. And I actually thought, wow, you really rushed this. But we were at the 44-minute mark. So I have to say, in honesty, I was surprised how much time had passed already. I did think it was like only 20 minutes have gone by. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you're just rushing to kill people.
You know why it felt like he was rushing to kill people, even though, because they packed a lot in there. They did pack up, but nobody talked about feelings or struggling with things. It was just, oh, we're in Hawaii. Let's have sex on the beach. No, okay, cool. We're at a luau. We get back from Hawaii. Fantastic. He goes to work. They get attacked. Then his wife is dead. We have no reaction from him. Then there's a funeral. Then Carol is having trouble, and then Carol is in the hospital. He goes to Tucson. He comes back. Like, it's stuff happens, but they never explore anything.
Yeah.
So it just feels like they're checking actions off a list. And so you just kind of move through. You're moving through it really quickly. So it feels really fast. Because every time there's a new scene, there's a new decision being made or a new person being moved, and nobody talks about anything.
I did like how this guy died. You always get the guy shot and he's like, you shot me, you dirty rat.
Yeah.
This guy flopped around at what looked like was in a lot of pain.
It's funny though, because I think after that one, I wrote, these bad guys are very caricature-ish.
Oh yeah.
And all of them are just a really big, and as the movie goes on, it proves it even more. They are just giant caricatures of what a quote unquote bad guy is.
Yeah.
And it makes me laugh because I'm like, also just the way they're asking for money. Hey, motherfucker, give me money. You got money?
Yeah.
Give me money. I'm like, who the fuck mugs anyone sounding like that?
People in New York in the 70s, I guess.
I guarantee that is not how they mugged you.
Shocked, Paul then runs home and vomits. I thought this was good too.
Yes.
Yeah, getting all that liberal bile out of his system.
Or the realization that he just took a life.
Yes.
Oh, willy-nilly because someone asked him for money.
And it kind of it did give you a sense of realism to the
It did.
act. Yeah.
It gave me a moment of he's struggling with this. Okay, emotional reaction. I'm like, fantastic. Then I got distracted because there's carpet in that bathroom. And I
Yeah,
was
that
like,
was 70s was
ew.
weird, man.
70s was so weird. Why? And the 80s. People kept putting carpet in the bathroom in the 80s. And I was like, why are you doing that?
My grandma put things on the doily things on the toilet seat, and
Why do people
like,
do
why
that?
would you do that? It's gross.
You need to clean that thing.
But carpets in the bathroom, that's just wrong.
I
I'm
got
sure your feet
distracted.
appreciate it in the wintertime.
Get heated flooring if you can't put down like something, a rug, a mat that you can pick up and wash.
Yeah.
This carpet, who the fuck? Anyways, I've always hated carpet in the bathroom because
Yeah,
it makes no good goddamn sense.
no, and it's gross.
It is.
Paul later walks through the city looking for criminals. He kills several muggers over the next few weeks, either luring them into confrontation by presenting himself as an affluent victim or when he sees them attacking innocent people. He segued into killing very quickly, and he kills a lot of people. And,
He's very trigger happy.
Yeah, and to be fair, he doesn't discriminate. He'll shoot anybody.
Want to hear the best? I wrote this note, and I was like, I appreciate the diversity among the criminals.
Yeah.
There are white guys, there are brown guys, there are Hispanic guys, there are black guys. Like, they're just, unfortunately, it's all guys. There were no women who were shot and killed for being criminals.
And I did like that party he was at, because there was the guy saying, don't you know that the vigilante shooting more black muggers? And the girl's like, well, there's more criminally, statistically, there's more black. Yeah. And then he's
Do you
like,
want us to ask white muggers to mug more?
to mug more?
I was like, I mean, and then we can go into the whole, why are more black muggers arrested? Let's talk about over policing certain neighborhoods, but we're not going to do that. Not today. We're just going to keep talking about all these fucked up people.
Yeah. And at first he was just walking around. Then he starts flashing money around and luring muggers into a trap or entrapment.
Yep.
And it's like you said, I love the lingo. It was awesome. I wasn't there, wasn't born. I knew they couldn't talk like that, but it was fun to listen to.
You know what? This is like if a librarian was writing like bad guys speak.
Yeah.
And they're like, like a librarian from like the middle of Indiana is like, well, how would somebody who's a bad guy in New York talk?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is how he would talk. And you're just like,
jive turkey. Jesus Christ.
True story though, because I'm like, no, it's cheesy as all hell.
Oh yeah.
But it was like, I kind of appreciate it, to be honest.
It was fun.
Yeah. I was like, this is ridiculous, and I kind of love you for it.
NYPD Inspector Frank Oka investigates the vigilante killings. His department narrows it down to a list of men who have had a family member recently killed by muggers and or are war veterans. I did like this part of the movie where I appreciated the storytelling. As the investigation, I actually thought to myself, I'm like thinking, oh, just fucking find the grocery store and find out if the murder or mugging had taken place. And they actually do that. Like, so it was.
Yeah, it takes a little while, but they get there.
Yeah, and at least it had it wasn't just stupid cops who was stupid. They were actually smart.
Well, I was like, this detective is actually not a
competent.
Moron.
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing. Also, did you notice the female police officer who was in that scene?
Oh yeah, that was what was her name?
Olympia Dukakis.
Dukakis, yeah.
I was like, wow, she literally has the same face. Like, she got older, obviously, and I knew her as an older actress. But I was like, she looks so young, but she looks the same, so easily recognizable. I was like, damn, Olympia, how you doing?
Paul then visits Carol at the Institute, where she remains generally depressed and unable to speak or love Jack. That's Wikipedia. That's presumptuous. She can't express actual love in physical context. Millions of women in marriage can't.
And millions more men can't.
It's quite common. Ask my wife.
One of these days she's gonna get real mad at you for the way
Yeah.
you talk about her.
Yeah, she has to listen to it first. She has physically assaulted the psychiatrist out of stress and is being tied to her bed with belts and ropes. Ah, the good old days. We also get Kersey hanging out with the son-in-law a lot. Like, I like when the son-in-law Paul is like, we can't just start shooting people. We're not pioneers anymore. I thought cowboys would be in a better analogy,
Well,
but
I mean, pioneers, they were the original. We're just
yeah,
gonna
they
shoot
weren't great.
everybody to
They
take
weren't all like
what we
golly,
want. We're just
golly
gonna
gee.
They were not extending hands of friendship. They were
No.
extending smallpox and measles, though,
Yeah, and muskets.
and muskets and alcohol.
I like how Kersey is like, if we're not pioneers anymore, what are we? And Paul is like, civilized. I really thought Charles Bronson was going to take another crack at liberals here. They also have that dinner, and Kersey has just killed a couple scumbags. He's in a great mood, making liver and spaghetti. I'm like, what the fuck?
I was like, if anything tips you off to someone's mental instability, okay?
Yeah, liver and
The fact that
spaghetti.
you're making liver and spaghetti for a guest. Now, it's very different when my almost 88-year-old father requests liver, because he's 88 years old and he doesn't have it very often. But never in his life would he be like, we're having someone come over for dinner. Let's make liver.
Yeah, my mother used to make liver, but for herself because no one else would eat it. And the smell.
My parents loved it, and I was like, oh, I can't. My sister likes it too, so her and my dad'll have it, and I'm like, okay, peace out, guys. I'm gonna go pick something up that actually smells good and tastes good. Liver is too much. Anyways, he made liver, and he was very insistent on the music being loud, and asking Jack how he wanted his liver cooked.
Yeah.
And then he just decided for him and was like, medium.
Yeah, and then he turns down the music and he's like, turn that up. I can't hear it. And
he painted his living room an orange color, a bright orange color. Very 70s.
Yeah.
I actually kind of like the color.
Actually, I didn't mind it either.
Yeah, I was like, I could never live in a house with that color on the walls. However, if I was visiting your house, I'd be like, oh, nice color.
Yeah. And and then there's the son-in-law says something. He's like, I'm not going to stop living because my wife's dead and my daughter went nuts. Now have a drink, you liberal puss.
Well, and I think they could have done so much more by exploring how Jack is super uncomfortable with how Paul was reacting to all of this and looking more suspicious, because you see a little bit of it during this dinner and you kind of see the weird turn that Paul has taken after his wife dies and his daughter's committed and he goes around killing people for shits and giggles. And you kind of see where he's veering off into mentally unstable land. And you can kind of see where Jack's like, this is odd.
Yeah.
This is a little bit weird. What the fuck? But it's one of the few scenes where that's actually communicated.
Yeah.
Like, for the most part, Paul's just a stone cold killer who takes lives like he's literally just like polishing shoes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's odd.
Detective Oka soon suspects Paul and is about to make an arrest when the district attorney intervenes and says that we don't want him. The district attorney and the police commissioner do not want the statistics to get out that Paul's vigilantism has led to drastic decrease in street crime. When they were leading up to this, or just as I love the old lady who beat off her assailant.
Oh my God, yes. She's like, I used a hat pin.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't have a gun, but I went into my closet. Do you know what a hat pin is? Let me show you.
Or the construction guys that were witnessing the mug and they chased the guy down and held him for the cops. And the news guy's like, well, we have reports that he has 2 broken arms, broken ribs. And the guy's like, oh, poor guy must have fallen down or something.
Oh, that's fantastic. I did actually like that.
Yeah.
I was like, that's kind of funny, actually.
They fear that if said information becomes public knowledge, the city will descend into vigilante chaos. If Paul is arrested, he can be labeled a martyr. Oka reluctantly relents and opts for scaring him off instead. I like how it was like, scare him off? And he's like, scare him off? Like the guy gunning down armed thugs? You want me to scare him off?
They're like, yeah, just scare him off. And he's like, scare him with what?
Yeah. One night, Paul shoots 2 more muggers before being wounded in the leg by a third and cut in the back. And
those were 2 separate muggings.
Those were 2 separate muggings. That's right. Paul pursues the mugger and corners him at a warehouse. He proposes a fast draw only to faint because of blood loss while the mugger escapes. Again, he's not indestructible. He's just a man. He does get that cut in the back. It looks painful.
That's when he was chasing the 2 muggers that he set up because he busted open his wallet, showed off his cash in a diner.
Yeah.
And then he went into the underpass for the subway. And those were 2 muggers. And one of them gets him with a knife. He gets away. One of the muggers gets away. Another one, I think, ended up getting his liver jacked up. And so he like patches himself up at home. Then the other mugging is when there were 3 people.
Yeah.
And 1 at the top of the stairs, 2 at the bottom. And he's like, man, fuck it, I'm going to start shooting. Does he shoot the people who had the knives first? No.
No,
wait, he did. Yeah.
He did.
Because
then he shoots the guy with the gun.
Yeah. First, he shoots the guy with the knife, ignoring the guy with the gun at the top of the stairs. Then the guy with the gun at the top of the stairs shoots him. He shoots him.
Yeah.
And then the third guy, he chases after him because the third guy's running. Like and then that's when they have the standoff and he's like, quick draw.
Yeah.
And then passes out.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
But yeah, he's just a normal man. A man's man. Not one of those
toxic masculinity, my friend.
One of those liberal pansies.
Oh,
a patrolman, a young Christopher Guest. I was surprised to see him there, looking so young. Discovers Paul's gun and hands it to Oka, who orders him to forget that he found it. At a hospital, Oka visits Paul, who is recovering. Oka offers surreptitiously? What the fuck?
Surreptitiously.
Yeah, that's it. Dispose of the revolver in exchange for Paul's permanent exile from New York. Paul takes the deal and his company agrees to transfer him to Chicago, while the press is informed that he is an ordinary mugging victim. Paul arrives in Chicago Union Station by train, being greeted by a company representative. He notices hoodlums harassing a young woman. He excuses himself and helps her. As the hoodlums mock him, Paul smiles while making a finger gun at them. And that was one of the best ending scenes ever. This movie, love it or hate it, that was a fantastic final scene. I love that part.
So ridiculous.
Oh,
because he looks like he just won the lottery.
Yeah. He's like, Chicago's going to be fun.
But also, can we talk about when Oka sees Paul in the hospital? He pulls out the gun, points it at him while he's talking about the gun with his finger on the trigger.
Yeah.
I was like, that's
not safe.
Safety. Yeah. I was like, sir, I'm pretty sure you got trained on how to use a gun in police academy. Do they tell you to put your finger on the trigger unless you're planning on shooting somebody? But anyways, when he does that and he tells them, you know what, get out of town, you should leave. Paul says by sundown. And that's another like way to harken back to the, and I was like, see, I wish we had more of that. Cause then you could be like, this guy's having a little bit of delusion that he's like the marshal in this, like in New York City. And he's trying to bring law and order to the world just by shooting people. And I'm like, I feel like that would have, I wanted a little more of that. Cause then he's walking around a little bit delusional and then everything makes more sense. Other than you sitting there going, he must be having a psychotic break. Cause what?
Yeah. But I don't remember if number 2 takes place in Chicago or not. I think it takes place in LA, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
They missed out on something there.
Oh yeah. And that is our movie. So let's bring up the YouTube scores. For those listening, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and rate this movie and other movies as buy it, rent it, stream it, or skip it. So where is it here? First, we have Buy It for gritty 70s revenge gem. which got 33% of the vote. Rent It, Vigilantism is so cool, got 56%. Stream It to see how it all started, 11%. And Skip It, Killing for Revenge is bad, got 0. Got 0%.
It's because we're all just so angry about everything.
I can't believe it didn't get 1.
Honestly, we're at the point where like, I mean, is Killing for Revenge really that bad?
Yeah. So Rent It. Vigilantism was so cool. It was the dominant.
I mean, I could see that. I do like vigilantism.
All right. So what is your score?
Okay. I'm torn because I rented this movie. And I am not mad that I rented it. I am not mad that I spent $4.99 on it. Because ultimately, it was interesting and I kind of want to see it again, so I might watch it again. But if I had the option, I would have streamed it. I would have preferred streaming it. Just because this movie, I know where it was going. It's a little bit ridiculous and it's a little bit odd, but I did enjoy watching it. It's something that I think Roger Ebert was the one who said it, where it's like there's a fascination with this movie, but it's a little over the top and like exploitative, like kind of. And I'm like, I get that. Like, there's a weird fascination with this, where you're like, I don't know where the fuck this guy is going because he's not making any faces or, emoting anything. Like, he's just wrong. So I would say Rent It. Rent It is a pretty solid choice. Would I buy this movie? Never. Not even a little bit. Would I have preferred to stream it and not pay for it? Yeah. Because I don't think this is going to be put into my rotation. And I don't think this is a movie that I could watch over and over and over again. But I'm not mad that I watched it. I liked it for its ridiculousness. And everybody needs to, like, this movie is just really fucking ridiculous. Also, it was probably written by someone who's a guns enthusiast, who really just wanted an excuse to go around shooting people. So he wrote his own fantasy. I'm just saying.
Well, actually, it's based on a novel by a writer with the exact opposite view. And then this was kind of reworked.
So that it turned into everybody should have a gun and just go around indiscriminately killing people.
Which there's a bit of trivia coming up.
I can't wait. But yeah, no, it was good. It was okay. I will not be rewatching it, but I think a rental is valid. I think a rental is definitely valid for it.
Right.
And you may end up hating it, but I thought it was just so ridiculous, and it really did feel like one of those films that they show you in high school that's written for high school students about like drugs or sex. But obviously it was written by someone who's never done drugs or had sex, because everything just feels way off and like caricaturish. So that's you got to be ready going into this. This movie gave me a lot of thoughts.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
A lot of thoughts. What's your rating?
My score. I rented this movie like you, and I'm fine with this. If I bought Death Wish, I would not have been upset. But I don't know how many times I would rewatch this movie. I love the way the movie was shot and scored. The acting was not always great.
Mm-hmm.
But watching this as a classic movie from a time that we weren't around for was actually great. What I really liked about this movie was that it was fun. The police were fairly realistic. Our hero was not indestructible, maybe a little too good at aiming and shooting his targets, but they did try to justify it during the movie.
Yes.
He never found the men who killed his wife and sent his daughter to the loony bin. I thought this was very realistic, a part of the story that kept it from sliding into even more cheesy, where the hero that avenges everything, which is almost what happens in all similar movies that would follow this, including future Death Wish movies. It is dated, sure. It is hokey and silly, but it was from 1974, so that's 50 years ago. It's a time capsule of sorts. Like all older movies. It also didn't drag. Like I said, I thought 15, 20 minutes passed when he started shooting everything up in New York, when it was actually 44. For 1974, I could see this movie being brutal, but in fact, from movies that have come out in similar stories, Death Wish is almost tame. Not to say that it isn't dark and serious in context, but the killings and even the assault that sets the vigilante story in motion is mild compared to a lot of movies that come after. Don't get me wrong; it's still uncomfortable to hear and see. I'm just saying I've seen way more uncomfortable movies.
Yeah.
All in all, I enjoyed it. I did have fun watching it. I will probably watch this again, and if that time comes around, it's one of those things where it's the same price to rent. But I hope it'll be streaming as well. But I say rent it. Vigilantism is so cool. And to see where it all started, to see a revenge movie that is a bit more grounded. I don't want to say in reality.
No, this is not reality.
But yeah, that does again, but it's a little more realistic than the carbon copies that would follow. That doesn't mean I don't like the carbon copies or the unstoppable hero who always gets the bad guy in the end. This was just refreshingly nice change, silly, very stereotypical, stereotype characters. Yeah, and just to see that last scene of him pointing his finger gun is just worth the price of rental alone.
So, in case anybody wants to spend the money to rent it, it is on. I rented it from Amazon Prime for $4.99, and on Prime they have all the sequels for free.
I was just about to say 2, 3, 4, and 5 are there, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Now, don't get me wrong. I will probably end up watching all of them because why the fuck not?
Yeah, I think we should definitely take a look at some more Death Wish movies.
Well, because I just read the synopsis for number 2, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I think his daughter gets raped again or something, doesn't she? Yeah. So I'm like, Jesus Christ.
And his house cleaner gets Rosario, but she doesn't make it. Somebody has to die, but apparently Carol never gets to die.
No, it just gets raped all the time.
Apparently, this is some stupid shit. But anyways, and then he goes onto the streets of Los Angeles because he moved to Los Angeles to have a safer place for his daughter. So I'm sitting there going,
even make sense.
Does that mean Jack divorced her?
Oh, maybe we'll find out.
Because he moved the girlfriend into the apartment. I'm telling you, he was cheating on her. It's just my gut feeling on that.
Number 3, he takes on a giant gang in New York. Number 4, he takes on a drug cartel. I don't know. I don't think I've seen number 5.
Oh, geez. Okay, but does the daughter die in 2? Or is she still alive?
I think come fall time, we might have to visit Death Wish again.
I think so. I think because now I'm just like, I need to know everything. I need to know who survives what. Who gets to live? Is the daughter still alive? Do they just have her be raped in every single movie? I need to know. Then I could be super angry about it. I also want to know if he has emotions in any of the other sequels. You would know that. You've seen them.
I don't think I think the acting gets worse.
Oh,
not worse, but like like I said in the preview, Death Wish 1 is the highest rated of the Death Wish movies by a lot.
Nice.
Doesn't mean the other one that aren't fun. We've watched a lot of movies that were rated really low, reviewed really low, that were fun.
I mean, I'm not mad about it. I'll be honest.
I love this movie. This movie, I still want to. I would love to revisit some more Death Wish, some more Charles Bronson.
I want to see how terrible it gets.
Yeah, I think it's a steady stream downward.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's what happens. So I'm down for it.
All right, as part of our YouTube, we've got trivia for Death Wish. There was a lot. So there's a few here, but I picked out like the most interesting. So you may start.
Ready, Freddie.
Can you read that?
I can. After finishing The Stone Killer, 1973, Charles Bronson and Michael Winner wanted to make another film together and were discussing further projects. What do we do next? Asked Bronson. The best script I've got is Death Wish. It's about a man whose wife and daughter are mugged, and he goes out and shoots muggers, said Winner. I'd like to do that, Bronson said. The film? Asked Winner. Bronson replied, no, shoot muggers. I mean, valid.
Charles Bronson's awesome. I bet he would. I bet you after this, he actually went out and shot people.
I mean, it's possible.
Hey, aren't you the guy from Death Wish? Bang. Shot me.
Was he a bleeding heart liberal in real life, or was he super conservative?
I think Charles Bronson, I don't know. If I had to guess, I'd say a little on the conservative side.
I mean, possible.
But he could have been, like, who knows?
Mm.
The name Paul Kersey was the actual name of one of the extras hired for the movie. He allowed the use of his name in exchange for his appearing in all possible scenes requiring an extra.
Hey man, that's pretty smart.
Yeah, because the script and the book, it wasn't Paul Kersey, it was some other name.
So what, like the first day of shooting, they were like, we need to change the name?
Yeah.
So weird. The role of Paul Kersey was originally intended for Steve McQueen, who turned it down.
That could have worked.
That definitely worked.
I love Steve McQueen.
He's so fantastic.
Yeah, he's and he was in the Magnificent Seven. He was in the Greatest. I'm sure they were obviously pretty good friends.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Bronson once said of this movie, "I certainly don't advocate anyone taking the law into their own hands. I don't think that the film advocates that either. If my films have a lesson, it's that violence doesn't pay. My opinion is that violence only breeds violence." That's true. You can make an argument for both both sides of that.
See, the only thing is, especially in the simplicity of films, his character goes around shooting people willy-nilly, fine. And then he doesn't get arrested for it. He doesn't go to prison. He doesn't even get like mortally wounded.
No.
He doesn't die. He just gets told, "Hey man, could you like not be here anymore?" He's like, "Okay, cool."
Yeah,
Then he just goes to another city.
Yeah, go to the second most violent city in the country. Was that
Initially,
me or you? Yeah.
That's me. Initially, Charles Bronson wasn't sold on starring in the film. The way the part was written, it was about a meek little New York-born accountant, Bronson said. I thought it was a much better picture for Dustin Hoffman. Eventually, it was Michael Winner who convinced Bronson to take the role anyway. He said we could change the part to be a more active and virile architect, and we'd all make a pot full of money. I mean, they made the money.
Yeah.
I'll give them that.
Brian Garfield thought that Charles Bronson was miscast as Paul Kersey. Garfield didn't like the fact that as soon as Bronson appeared on screen, you knew he was going to start blowing people away. Michael Winner dismissed the author's criticisms, calling him an idiot.
I mean, no.
I kind of agree with the author here.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, you know Charles Bronson's going to shoot someone. If you're watching a movie with Charles Bronson in it, he's shooting some people.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh.
I like that. After viewing the film, Brian Garfield was dissatisfied with the result of the adaptation of his novel due to its advocacy towards vigilantes. So he wrote a sequel called Death Sentence, which dealt with the consequences of vigilantism. The book was adapted in 2007, starring Kevin Bacon, but with a completely different story, which kept only certain elements from the book.
So they fucked him that way too.
Yep. Because that's a risk that I don't think a lot of authors necessarily realize.
Yeah, they don't have
the rights to your product, whether it's a movie, a play, or whatever. The filmmakers can do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
Same thing with TV producers. They could do whatever the fuck they want. They could not use any of your story and just use the title, or they could like scrap everything and keep like a character's name. Be like, it's based on this.
And that was a great movie. I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember loving Death Sentence.
I don't think I've ever seen Death Sentence.
It's a very violent. Yeah, it wasn't what Brian Garfield intended at all. This was another
Yeah.
guy going out for revenge, and this was a little more realistic in the makeup department. But yeah, this
Oh,
was a
yeah?
great movie. Plus, Kevin Bacon's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Audience loved the film so much that Paramount raised the ticket price from $3.50 to $4. Until then, only The Godfather, 1972, and The Great Gatsby, 1974, had been as expensive.
Damn, they brought it up 50 cents. That's a big jump in
Yeah,
74.
$3.50.
Shit. That's a lot. Dino De Laurentiis and Paramount originally wanted to call the film The Sidewalk Vigilante because they thought a movie with death in the title was a deterrent and would put audiences off.
Yeah, that's a good
Apparently, they were
call.
very wrong.
Yeah, they should have. Yeah, The Sidewalk Vigilante.
He only fights people on sidewalks.
Just the title alone would have had me going, I need to see this movie.
Well, Death Wish is so dramatic.
Yeah,
So you're sitting there going like, yeah, I guess every mugger in it has a death wish.
yeah, because you'd be like, look, it's Charles Bronson. You know he's going to shoot people in the face.
I think that's part of the problem. I think the death wish probably referred to Paul Kersey, the
Yeah.
character. Like he has a death wish, but Charles Bronson apparently did not communicate that vulnerability.
No, not at all. The only Death Wish movie produced by Dino De Laurentiis, who later sold the film rights to the Cannon Group for a reported $200,000. You think after making $22 million, though, you'd be like, yeah, let's make another one. Because Dino De Laurentiis loved making sequels. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know maybe he was like, I'm done. I'm tired. I'm done.
Yeah.
This film was said to have inspired several copycat incidents of vigilantism around the country. Probably the most famous is the 1984 NYC subway shooting of 4 youths by Bernhard Goetz, who was approached by the teens on a subway car demanding he give them his money. The 4 were all shot and wounded by Goetz, but the New York tabloids dubbed the Death Wish vigilante. Who the New York tabloids dubbed the Death Wish vigilante. Interesting.
Yeah. It has been rumored that Denzel Washington played one of the alley thugs at around 47 minutes, albeit uncredited. While the actor in the film may bear a resemblance, Washington confirmed in a 2016 interview with Yahoo that he did not appear in the film, nor had he even started acting yet in 1974. Washington also stated in the interview that he saw it added to his IMDb page.
I love that, where people are just so convinced and they're like, no, he was in it. After Jack Lemmon departed the production, the role of Paul was offered to both Henry Fonda and George C. Scott. Fonda declined, calling the script repulsive. Scott declined due to the level of violence. Interesting.
Charles Bronson at first refused to do the ending scene in the railway station, but eventually agreed to make it because Michael Winner insisted. After seeing the good reviews from the audiences, he claimed he wrote this scene. And he probably really thought he did.
He probably really thought, because he's probably one of those people who's like, they rewrite history in their head and they're like, no, this is a memory. And you're like,
yeah,
no.
I wrote that. Oh, that's it. All right.
Amazing.
Yeah. That is our trivia for Death Wish. All right. So is there anything else you would like to add about Death Wish?
Not about Death Wish, although this was a ride. This was a ride.
Yeah.
I was very much like, oh, Jeff Goldblum. And then I was like, oh, Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Why would you do that, sir? Excuse me. But yeah, no, it was an interesting movie and I didn't hate it, but I didn't really like it either.
Actually, that reminds me that there was a trivia in there where Jeff Goldblum was interviewed about, they asked him if he regretted this part of getting the movie. And he said no, because this was his first movie he auditioned for and he got it. So
no, and he played it well.
Yep.
He played it really well, although his hat was distracting.
Yeah. Is that
It
like a
was the
Jughead hat?
hat.
Yeah, the Jughead hat from
like,
Archie Comics.
How am I supposed to take you seriously as a semi-homicidal maniac He's just going around like raping and mugging people
with a jug head on.
with a jug head out. Go get a malt with Archie. This is not where you should be. It was a very, very interesting movie, but now I'm super, super curious to find out whether or not Jack ends up divorcing Carol.
I think we could do a Death Wish 2 in the summer. I think like this summer we should really look at fun drive-in B movies for the whole summer. And Death Wish 2 could. I know Death Wish 3 is that movie.
God, I hope Death Wish 2 doesn't have like a super violent scene with the.
Yeah, because you only get like I said, it's true because this was again it was horrible, but it was tame compared to what later would come. And this movie came 8 years later.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, we gotta make it worse than the last one.
Those 8 years definitely made a difference because as we get into the 80s, definitely violence became a lot more, and especially violence against women in films.
Oh yeah, I Spit on Your Grave.
Oh yeah,
Last House on the Left. Yeah,
it became almost a national, international pastime.
Yeah,
for violence against women in film. And even sometimes when it wasn't needed for the storyline, it was thrown in there, and you're just like, did you have to?
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see how it all pans out and like how they play it out, especially because the daughter comes with him to LA. I'm like,
because I don't think there's anything like that in number 3. I could be wrong. Number 3 is just over the top. Like this is a gang of like hundreds. Because like he just kills a ton of people.
Oh Lord.
But yeah, I definitely think we can visit the Death Wish movies.
I think so too. I think it'll be interesting.
I think we should have I think we should do 2 movies a week and do movies we remember and then do really bad like B movies, just strictly bad movies.
I'm down.
Not that they're bad, but I mean they are bad, but even bad ones are sometimes a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So you got 2 rent-its. You might not like it, and it's just a fun checking out the 70s, the stereotypes, New York in the 70s. Yeah,
this was an odd movie.
Yeah, I can see why people were shocked back then. I can see why people were into it back then.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely an experience. But I mean, overall, I was like, it didn't drag for me and I wasn't really bored. So that's saying something.
Yeah. All right. We got 2 rent-its. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, going over Death Wish. And until the next movie we remember liking.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.